Hello there, and how are you doing? It is almost the end of 2023. 2024 is looming on the horizon. The festive season is pretty much upon us. The building where my office is here in Hong Kong has gone nuts. There's basically Christmas decorations everywhere, and a sort of creepy guy in a tiny bear costume running around scaring people, which I'm not sure was his intention, but he looks a little bit like a bear version of Chucky from the Child's Play horror movies. Not a great look for him, but there we go. Now, it's been a very, very busy December. December is always busy in Hong Kong. There's lots of festive Christmas gatherings, parties, all sorts of things. Lots of talks. I've given talks on AI. Again, lots of talks on AI. I've taken part in an online seminar on AI and a lot of talks on cybersecurity. So it's been quite a hectic month. I also made the mistake of moving house. Now, if you've ever watched one of my videos where they've been shot at my old home now, I suppose, you'll see that I've got lots of vinyl records, about 17,000 of them, all meticulously arranged in alphabetical order so I know where everything is. Well, they're now in a new location, but let's just say my movers weren't the most effective people, so they are no longer in alphabetical order and I don't know where anything is. So that's going to be my holiday season, I guess, moving records and figuring out where they should all go. But hey, what can you do? Now, I promised that I would do a video on my predictions of 2024. And I think this has been an interesting year because I think it's quite easy to predict what my predictions will be. Predicting the predictions, as you would say. Because there's lots of big ticket items globally and certainly here in Hong Kong that I think we will see possibly all of, maybe not one of them, come into fruition in the new year. So I'm going to go through them. I've got five. Might have six. Now I've got five. What the last one's kind of a big one and a catch-all, but never mind. And let's go through them one by one and see if you agree. So the first thing, number one, the big thing in 2024 is going to be very much the same as in 2023, and it will be generative AI. If you think about it, it's only been just over a year now that generative AI sort of took hold and got a bit of a wave of publicity. And now it's everywhere. Everyone's trying to use it. Everyone wants to use it. Everyone's thinking, will they lose their jobs to it? And that's going to take place and really shape what happens in the next year. We will see new uses for it. We'll see industries getting hold of it, a bit like as people start to adopt and use the internet for the way that they do business in their day-to-day lives. We'll see more and more people getting on that particular train now in terms of use of AI. Lots of different industries, lots of organizations, including law firms, so even where I am here, are looking at how they can actually use AI to make their work more efficient, make it work better, essentially streamline some of the practice. And of course, there's lots of fears to what it means to individuals and what it means to their jobs. Is there a restriction on freedom? Are robots going to take over and kill us all? Which is a question I often ask in some of my talks. That's a concern too. Because of that, I think that in 2024, whilst we'll still have the sort of gold rush of AI tools and people trying to really engage in them, we're also going to see a real move towards people thinking about how they actually regulate AI, how they stop it doing any harm. Now, I did a talk, I was moderating a talk actually about 2 weeks ago on whether we could have essentially global regulation of AI. Now, I think we've got too many disparate jurisdictions, that's not possible, but we will see, and we are already seeing different types and different steps towards regulation in different jurisdictions. Some are taking it on the view of protecting copyrighted material. It's fair enough, that makes sense. Some are trying to protect the rights of individuals. That's definitely an EU approach, and I think they're probably going to take the lead on this. Others are trying to protect the state and national security. No surprises for guessing who that might be. Others are just waiting to see what happens and having a bit of a free-for-all. Certainly, Hong Kong, I think, is waiting to see how things go, but Hong Kong is very much a wait-and-see jurisdiction. But we will see some moves towards regulation. I don't think we'll see anything completely concrete in the new year, not in 2024, but we'll see certain steps towards it. And in 2025, we should get something. And then we'll see, we might get the AI version of the GDPR in the not-too-distant future. So that's number one, prediction number one. Number two is something I predicted last time. I said Hong Kong will get new data privacy laws. The Personal Data Privacy Ordinance is horribly, horribly out of date. And we've been told multiple times it will be updated. We've got a doxing law that are attached to it, but it's kind of the weak man of data privacy laws of Asia. It doesn't really go very far. The fines are almost non-existent unless you do some very specific things. And I've been told by the Privacy Commissioner there are changes coming. I assume we will have these at least announced in 2024. We'll at least have an idea of what to expect. And I'm expecting it will be data breach responses. I'm guessing that we'll have mandatory reporting. I'm guessing we'll have bigger fines. Or alternative, we'll take a view that would give us very similar to the Chinese personal information protection law, which actually is a bit vague in some senses in terms of the data you can transmit, but it sort of works. It's a bit GDPR light, so we might get that. So that's prediction number two. which links nicely into prediction number 3, because something we are definitely getting is a national security law specifically for Hong Kong. And this is an interesting one. There is an article in the Basic Law, that's sort of the constitution for Hong Kong, Article 23, which states that we should have our own, essentially, national security law safeguarding it's basically the lives of the state and everyone in Hong Kong. And there's been a lot of hoo-ha, is the best way to describe it, of whether that should come into force and when it would. We've had protests over it way back in, before I was living here in 2003, I think. But now we're getting it. We're getting it next year. There's been a real agreement that this has got to happen. I'm expecting to see something not so much like the national security law that came from China to us in 2020, but something a bit more structured, focusing on data protection, perhaps looking very similar in some ways to some of the data laws that China already has to protect the state and protect critical infrastructure. I think that will impact a lot in terms of technology. So for any organization that collects data from Hong Kong may find they have some problems or some challenges. Hong Kong will be keen to try and keep the place as open as possible. But we'll also see some restrictions on what sort of data business can collect and transmit out of Hong Kong. So I don't know what it looks like. As far as I'm aware, I think the Security Bureau are looking at it at the moment. But we're going to get it by the end of 2024, and it's going to be a very interesting thing. I'm sure there'll be an entire video from me just on that. And it'll be interesting to see how international firms react. I am hoping they don't react badly, but that will come on to one of my later predictions later on. So that's number 3. Number 4 is cybersecurity. Now, I've been in the cybersecurity game for a long time, it seems. It makes me feel like I'm getting old, but there we are, I am getting old. And one of the things that used to be quite straightforward is that when you had a ransomware demand, cyber insurance would often pay out the ransom. It was one of those things, well, this is the easiest way to save you money and get your data back. We'll just pay the ransom. That is stopping. That's been stopping for some time. But now we're seeing more and more, I guess, states at this point, but organizations too, thinking, should we actually be cooperating when we get hacked with those individuals who have hacked us? Are we not then helping the problem get worse? Are we not essentially sending money to something that's been used for criminal uses? And I think we'll see a more strict view on that from certain jurisdictions, because Singapore and the UK have signed an agreement whereby where it's a government hack, they will no longer pay a ransom because they feel like they're just funding nefarious deeds. I think we'll see that in other jurisdictions as well. I think people will get more conscious, and that will have a very interesting impact on breach response and what people can do. Prevention will be even more important, and we may find more data released into the wild because if a ransomware demand is not met, then they'll release the data. And we may find that this causes lots of problems in terms of the data laws that I mentioned earlier. I think that will be a big deal. Now, the last one, my final prediction, is a catch-all. The biggest thing we're going to see, I think, in 2024, which will lead us into 2025, is what's happening between relations and between the US and China. Now, I find that the world's a little bit of a shouty, scary place at the moment. People aren't getting on. We've got at least 2 major flashpoints going on in the world as we speak. There's just that horrible feeling of things could go very, very vastly wrong at any given moment. I don't think that's going to get better, and that's going to instruct relationships between the US and China, which I think will be not completely cold. Hopefully they'll warm up a bit, but a lot's going to rest on what happens in terms of the US presidential election, and that could change everything. Now, because of that, that means we're going to see most likely more tech sanctions, more restrictions on tech. I was coming up in the lift earlier and I read about how there are seemingly more restrictions on people using Apple phones and even Samsung phones now in China. They want to use local Chinese phones. I think we're going to see the world become a bit segregated, a sort of a next stage of the ongoing technology war between China, US, or East and West even. And we're going to probably not benefit from that in any way at all. Each jurisdiction, China's certainly pushing for this now, will develop their own technology independently of the others, so there's less cooperation. And I think this will make for some interesting developments in tech, but also make for a lot less collaboration and will ultimately cause problems. So I think we're in for a bumpy ride. I think 2024 is not going to be the easiest of years. I think it'll be a very, very interesting year. Be interested to see what comes true and what doesn't. Maybe one of the 2 jurisdictions who aren't very happy with each other will invent some AI robot which will destroy us all, and then we can live in the Terminator. Let's just hope that's not the case, because I think I'm getting a bit too old to be running away from killer robots as each year passes. But that's it. That's my 5 for 2024. We will see what happens. Watch this space for AI regulation. I think that's a big one. Watch this space for whatever laws we get here in Hong Kong domestically in terms of data and security law. But let's see what's happening in the big global sphere and how this affects not just what's happening here in Asia, but in the rest of the world. But most importantly of all, given this is my last video of the year, I will see you in 2024. Whatever you are doing for the holidays, have an absolutely brilliant time. Just spend time with families, friends, get some cool tech presents for Christmas. I don't really know what I want for Christmas this year. Normally it's a shoe-in, but maybe I want someone to come and rearrange my records back into alphabetical order. So if there's any takers, let me know. I might even let you pick one of them to keep and take home. Pretty sure there'll be no takers. Anyway, that's it from me. Have a great holiday season. I will see you in the new year. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, whatever you are celebrating, enjoy it and have a great 2024. I will see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.